Would everybody please rise? Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin this fall town meeting, let us reflect on the many town meetings that have been heard and held here in the town of Winchester over the last century. Because of the leadership, prudence, and caution of past town meeting members, town officials, finance committees, our educational and municipal services are second to none. Our job in this struggling economy is to balance the many needs and wishes of our constituents with the available assets. The town meeting is not just about today, it's about today and tomorrow. Let us reflect on the importance that the town meeting and its financial committee be properly and fully informed. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I've examined the warrant and find that it's been properly served, and we have a series of preliminary motions which you'll find on page 4 of your motion booklet, and it's moved and seconded that the following preliminary motions be voted as one. And the first one, if you look on page 4, and I'll just run through them quickly, they're pretty standard. That allows Mary Ellen, Brian Keaveney, the controller, Wade Welch, and Mark Toogood to sit up front here and during all sessions of the town meeting. The second allows the finance committee, whether they're town meeting members or not, to sit up front, and that it allows the assistant town clerk to be permitted to occupy a desk on the stage, and that the moderator is authorized to permit members of various boards and commissions, department heads of special articles to come down front, even though they're not town meeting members, and that unless otherwise ordered, all adjourned sessions of this town meeting will be held on successive Thursday and Monday evenings at 7:30 p.m. in the Winchester High School auditorium, and that all motions that we pass here involving appropriations shall be contingent on compliance with the Massachusetts general laws, and finally a motion that allows cable television coverage to be permitted at this session and all the sessions of this town meeting. All those in favor of those preliminary motions, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, in accordance with the bylaws of the Winchester town meeting, and the Winchester town and the town of Winchester, at the end of the fall town meeting under Article 1, we will take a brief recess. I would suspect that would be sometime around 8:30, and we'll take a recess at that time, and we will have in the cafeteria there will be an opportunity for certain vacancies in the town meeting to be filled if people show up to ask to serve in the respective precincts. And I will get a list from the assistant town clerk here and read that just before, and that will be our mid-meeting adjournment, and we'll at the same time hopefully fill some vacancies. If there's nobody here this time, we will do it again at the next meeting. Just for, if you turn to the list of articles, which is on page 5 in the motion book, I would like to give you just a quick overview of what I think is going to happen because there are some things that have happened in the last 48 hours that suggest that we may have to change some of the dates. Now, as you know, today is the 4th. The next meeting normally would be on the 8th, which is next Monday. And if there was a third meeting, it would be on Thursday, but that's a holiday, so it would be on the 15th. And if we had to go to that Thursday, it would be on the 18th. Now, here's what's happening. If you look at that particular page, it shows that we have 29 articles. And we're going to hear next, the first article is to hear the reports of all the officers. They have 5 minutes each to present their report. And then we would move to Article 2. And Article 2, okay, thank you. The Article 2 is to vacate seats of town meeting members who have failed to attend meetings. I've been advised that that motion will be indefinitely postponed. And if you drop all the way down to motion number 12, and that's to appropriate funds for the VO school project, I've been requested by the school committee to, when that comes up, we will postpone that to a time certain, and that will be the second order of business on the 18th of November. The reason for that selection of the 18th is that the state has to vote the amount of money that will be put aside for this project, and they don't vote until the 17th. So you got to have their vote before we do our vote. And based on that, if we go back to the Personnel Board, the Personnel Board report is Article 3. That article will be postponed to the first order of business on November 18th. And the reason for that and what has caused that to move later in the program as planned is that the school department has signed an agreement with their employees, and within the last 4 weeks, the town management staff has worked aggressively to try to sign up all of the municipal employees, and they have had a excellent reception, and it looks like that we are going to be able to bring a very high percentage of settlements, including adjustments to the health care package, back to the town meeting, and they've requested to be on the first order of business so Article 3 will be postponed. Article 13, as of this afternoon, I got a call from the school committee, and they have requested that the VO school is going to be postponed to the 18th. They want it to be right after the Vincent Owen discussion. So that's what's planned, and other than that, I would hope that with a few exceptions, we will just continue on and follow the order that's in your warrant. Having said that, we turn now to Article 1, an act of the reports of the town officers and finance committee. And it's moved, yes, sir. State your point of information. Who is speaking? I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, I should have known. Yes, sir.
With respect to Article 13, postponed now until November Article 12, postponed now until November the 18th. You said something about it's postponed while we await the state to vote on November the 17th. So we'll know how much money will be available for that project. Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
How much money are we asking for?
I think that they calculate the amount based on the scope. I don't think it's a request. I think, Mr. McAuliffe, do you know how much money that project is going to cost? On a point of information.
Mr. Moderator, MSBA is reviewing the final cost template. That was the last piece of the schematic design phase. We expect to hear back from MSBA on the cost, the total cost, sometime in the next few days. The MSBA staff will then be making a recommendation to the MSBA board to act on for November 17th. It looks like the the total cost is somewhere around $28.9 million. And then what we will know on the 17th, if not before, is what the reimbursement amount will be.
All right, thank you, and you'll have a chance to do follow-up questions when we move for indefinite for postponing to a time certain if you choose to. So with that, Article 1, that's moved and seconded that the reports of the town offices be received and placed on file. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been customary in New England town meetings to have the various boards, like the selectman or the town manager and the chairman of the finance committee, give a report. And it's been customary that those reports are not debatable and there are no questions to be presented to them in this article, because they're reports that are written and verbally given, which are placed on file. We are not approving those reports. And so, as customary here in Winchester, we usually start with the chairman of the Finance Committee, Peter Scheimitz. And Mr. Scheimitz, you have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay, and I'll try to keep it to 5 minutes. Hello. This is going to be my first time speaking up here, so give me a break. Okay. Hi. I'm Peter Scheimitz, Finance Committee Chair this year, and I'd like to speak a little bit about the financial aspects of the town meeting. From a financial perspective, this town meeting breaks down into two major categories. There's the contract settlements, and then there's the capital articles. And there's a little oops where we're going to fix a little bit of the free cash article that we did in the spring. The usual job of the Finance Committee's chair's remarks, coming as they do at the beginning of the evening, sort of in the warm-up session, is to get you folks into the mood that we'd like you in, which is usually get you out of the mood to spend money. However, this time, we're going to spend a lot of money. Well, actually, if everything goes according to plan, we're going to spend a lot of money. And this is a mildly mixed message in that the state of Massachusetts, and by extension the town, still have a long way to go before they're out from under the major effects of the recession that we're supposedly been out of for a while. The federal government and the state are done with large stimulus injections which might have any chance of affecting our coffers. And meanwhile, the state collections are only starting to recover, so they remain in self-protection mode, limiting even the standard local aid that the town receives, and thus holding down our revenues even further. Yet, for most of the downturn, the town has handled its budget well, and until this fiscal year, has maintained services while increasing its reserves. This year has been different. Last spring, we passed a budget that did, in fact, maintain municipal services, recovered school services lost in previous budgets, but we did so at the expense of our reserves. For the first time in several years, our free cash balance dropped, and moving forward, we will need to budget in a way that maintains and hopefully enhances those reserves. We must do so not only to maintain our ability to borrow, but also to maintain our ability to provide services that we as a community have come to expect. Just to go over the articles that we're going to be looking at, there are several contract settlements, and even since I wrote this, which was a couple days ago, there's more. There are 3 school contracts that we'll be looking at: teachers aid, clerical employees. The new one is the janitors in the school. There are 2 police contracts, patrolmen and superior officers, and there's an across-the-board raise for non-unit employees throughout the town government. Details of these contracts are still under review. The proponents and we, the FinCom, will have more to say later in the meeting. At this time, we'd like to congratulate the acting town manager and her assistant town manager in closing so many long-term contracts which have been waiting for a while in the wings. Article 5, well, Article 5 is kind of an oops. It fixes a mathematical mistake that we made last spring, and I use we broadly, even though I'm one of the we. We're off in our calculations of the necessary free cash required to balance the budget. We were off in those calculations by more than $400,000. After a lot of recalculation, we now have the number to fix that, and you can see that in your warrant. To compound the cash error, or maybe to kind of correct it, the revenues this year have been running below our May expectations. In a move that the FinCom wholeheartedly supports, the selectmen have decided to lower a number of budgets to adjust for that updated and lower revenue projections. In other articles with financial ramifications, there are 2 articles dealing with the fallout from Abbott's inability to close the Right Lock Farm deal. Article 8 provides an ability to extend the short-term borrowing of the town, but the town is using to cover the cost of purchasing the farm, a cost that was supposed to be covered by now by Abbott's funds and was therefore not included in this year's budget. Article 7 will ask the state to extend the town's authority to continue that short-term borrowing practice, short-term but also inexpensive borrowing practice for a while longer, saving the town's capital while maintaining flexibility. Article 8, we take another bite at the meals tax apple. The town looked at it in 2009. We passed on it then. We now find ourselves surrounded by towns that have adopted it. I've heard the expression that we're a donut town in reference to this. Passing this means a small addition to each meal, but it represents up to $100,000 a year in town revenue. Putting that value in perspective, that $100,000 is approximately, or approaches, 1/2 of the revenue shortfall we're finding ourselves in this year. And finally, there's the real money in the fall town meeting, the capital articles. As you can see from your warrant, there are several high-value school projects this year, a couple of town-related projects. These will be comprehensively discussed as they come up. The Finance Committee would like to acknowledge the hard work of the other committees and town employees that have put in to get us and you the information that we need. This is especially true, and we'd like to thank the FPBC, the Capital Planning Committee, and the Town Manager's Office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're right on the money for 5 minutes. Very good. Board of Selectmen, Mr. Howley. Mr. Howley is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, boards and committees. The operating and capital requests that you will consider and the ideas that we are going to discuss at this town meeting are essential to our development of a comprehensive multi-year financial plan. Cost reductions and revenue enhancements, the completion of collective bargaining agreements, the protection of our AAA bond rating, as well as the lower rates that we enjoy as a result of that bond rating, the use and renewal of our capital funds. Many of the decisions that we make here and in the months ahead will not be easy. You will hear that the projected deficit for fiscal year 2012 is large. But we have a clearer idea now of what we are facing than we did even just a few months ago. And we are using that information to engage and resolve these issues. Under Articles 4 and 5 and 6, Mr. Fontana will talk in more detail about where we are and our priorities and plans for getting where we need to be. I would like to use this report to comment on other items that I believe are important. The town's senior management. The senior management team we have in place has allowed us to address significant issues quickly and well. Although we cannot talk about specific personnel matters, I can tell you this. The board believed then and we believe now that we made the right decision for the town, both as to the non-renewal of the former town manager's contract and in keeping the current senior management team in place while we address and resolve the significant and time-sensitive financial challenges that we face. By the end of March, we intend to assess what we have accomplished and move forward to fill the town manager's position on a permanent basis. The board understands that organizations need permanent leadership. In the short term, however, we believe that we have not skipped a beat and that in fact we have made far more progress more quickly on critical time-sensitive issues than we otherwise could. Collective bargaining. As the moderator noted, we are making very good progress on our collective bargaining agreements. These agreements have been outstanding for too long. And on November 18th, when you consider the personnel article, we hope that you will find these agreements appropriately recognize the town's limited resources while affirming the value of our employees' central role in the quality of municipal services in our educational system. Importantly, all of these bargaining units have agreed to drop their grievances against the insurance changes that we implemented on July 1st, eliminating the exposure that we would otherwise have regarding the $800,000 in insurance savings that is built into our current year's budget. Right Lock Farm. After making 2 non-refundable payments totaling $1,600,000, Abbott Development has defaulted. This week, the town issued notice of terminations and a demand for payment of the final 2 deposit payments, again totaling an additional $1,600,000. Demand also is made for the release from ESCO of all permits and plans for this fully permitted project. Under our agreement with Abbott, all permits and plans are to be assigned to the town upon default. Over the next several weeks, the board will carefully evaluate the current market conditions for the project and determine the most favorable time to request new proposals for the acquisition of the land, permits, and plans. A new RFP could issue in late winter, allowing us to return to the spring or fall town meeting with a recommendation regarding the sale of the developable portion of the property. I also want to note that the historic preservation agreement authorized by the town meeting is now in place since we last met, permanently protecting the exterior of the historic farm buildings, that the board intends to enter into a one-year management agreement with the Conservancy for the management of the property, and that we may return to town meeting in the spring to request authorization of a long-term lease with the Conservancy covering the farm and the historic farm buildings. Mr. O'Connor will be presenting Articles 7 and 8 concerning the temporary financing of the farm during our continued ownership. Water and sewer rates. Senior management has been carefully monitoring water and sewer revenue since last spring. I'm happy to report that the dry summer produced strong revenue that will cover expenses for fiscal year 11, and no rate increase is necessary at this time. The last rate increase was in January of 2007, and we believe that there may be need at the Springtown meeting to make our next rate adjustment. We will have a written report for you on fiscal year 10 actuals and fiscal year 11 projections before the end of this town meeting. Energy and the environment. During the past 4 years, through the work of the Energy Management Committee, DPW, the schools, and the support of capital planning and town meeting, we have avoided approximately $1,400,000 in energy costs. We will continue to aggressively pursue capital investments and operating procedures that quickly pay for themselves through greater energy efficiency. As part of that overall effort, you may recall that town meeting approved the zoning overlay necessary to allow a large-scale solar panel array at the transfer station and authorized funding for a consultant to conduct a study to confirm the highest and best use of that available land. The study by RKG Associates has just been completed and recommends as the highest and best use a 500 kilowatt solar panel array with panels to be paid for, installed, and maintained by a third party under a 15 to 20...
Mr. Howley?
Yes.
Your time has expired. Do you wish more time?
I could use another 3 minutes, please.
It's moved and seconded the speaker's time be extended 3 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Howley.
Thank you. If we decide to pursue this power purchase agreement, it is estimated that it will provide annual cost avoidance of $50,000 or more. We may come back to town meeting once details of that are worked out, the CAP certification is in place, and propose that to you. The completion of the, I now want to talk about the American with Disabilities Act transition plan. The completion of the American with Disabilities Act transition plan is very important to the board. The plan proposes over a 10-year period to remove barriers to accessibility town-wide. Making our streets and facilities accessible to all our citizens is not only a legal requirement, it is a community value that we will fulfill. Our board greatly appreciates the work of the town's Disabilities Access Committee. We continue to make steady progress on the plan, and we anticipate that the transition plan will be completed by the end of December. My conclusion. I want to conclude my report as I began by saying that we are making much progress in confirming the town's financial condition and addressing the issues we face. As much progress as we are making, as was noted by the chair of the Finance Committee, the truly difficult work has yet to be done. You will hear the details of our financial projections and strategy shortly, and it will be clear that this is complex, there are many pieces that we must connect and balance, and that the numbers are challenging. But Winchester has many strengths not enjoyed by other communities, and we will protect the things we value most and earn the public support as we have done in the past, by drawing upon the talent, the commitment, collaboration of the town's senior management employees, the superintendent and school committee, the finance committee, other boards and commissions, our state representatives, and all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Chair recognizes the chairman of the school committee, Sarah Girardi.
Perfect. Okay. A little shorter than Tom. Good evening. Thanks for everyone coming out for yet another rainy night of town meeting. I don't know how that always happens. As school committee, our primary focus is on the education of the students that are entrusted to us. We also focus on long-range planning through careful and considerate deliberation of the many issues that come before us. Our recommendations for this fall's town meeting are a result of those careful considerations. There we go. For those of you who were here in the spring, you'll note that this is similar to what I presented at that time. I'm showing it again because this is why we are all so dedicated to our students. Our challenge as a district is to raise students who aren't just academically accomplished, but to provide them with opportunities to become well-rounded young adults. We want them to be learners and teachers, athletes and artists, compassionate and kind, and I think we succeed. Our students are learners. Winchester High was #1 in the state for the 2010 MCAS ELA exam. Vincent Owen was one of only 8 schools in Massachusetts to receive the coveted Blue Ribbon Award from the Department of Education for high-performing schools. This is a great reflection of the educational values that we strive for as a district and as a town. Our students are athletes. Our athletic participation rates continue to be very high, allowing many students to strive for excellence on and off the field. One highlight of our fall seasons is our boys soccer team, which is both undefeated and tops in the Middlesex League. Our students are creative. If you haven't heard our various choruses perform, you're missing out. The Fall Acapella Fest is this Saturday at the Town Hall. Other Winchester High School students got creative in a different way this year. Through a generous grant from WIFI, they converted a gas truck to an electric one. And our students are compassionate. Ella Adams and her students at the Lincoln School raise money each year for fellow students at the El Nino School in the Dominican Republic. Our Connect and Commit program grows stronger each year. Be sure to look for information on the Thanks Giveaway Drive taking place on Saturday, November 10th. So, there are many initiatives underway in our schools that will help ensure our district remains strong well into the future. We are ever mindful of the importance of long-range planning and work to share our visions and plan as much as possible. Our big 6 are up on the screen behind me. I'll speak to 3 of them now, and the rest you'll hear about through the remainder of town meeting. High school visioning and focus on the future. For the past year, parents, staff, students, and town citizens have been meeting to discuss our shared vision for Winchester High School. Through feedback, forums, and a lot of hard work, we are well on our way to creating a long-range educational plan for the high school. This process is critical in informing us as we move down the parallel track of updating the Winchester High School facility. Contracts. We've come to contract agreements with our 3 unions. These contract settlements ensure that our students, teachers, and administrators will continue to enjoy a strong relationship while providing for long-range planning both for the school department and for the town. School culture. In order to educate, we must first ensure that every student feels safe in school. To that end, this past Tuesday was a professional day for our teachers while the children enjoyed a day off. They attended a workshop discussing school culture, bullying, and new legislation that directly impacts the schools. In addition, our task force on school culture will be prepared to deliver their findings and recommendations in the near future. So Fall Town Meeting is a time to review our capital projects. We've been fortunate to partner with the MSBA, that's Mass School Building Authority, for 3 upcoming projects. These partnerships will save the town millions of dollars, between 33% and 40% of each of these projects, while completing very necessary improvements to our school facilities. Before I get to those, I want to talk a little bit about the ADA transition plan. It's not a specific capital item, but is an important part of all of our town and school buildings. The school committee's ADA subcommittee has reviewed the draft transition plan in depth and has identified the most pressing issues from the school perspective. We are committed to working with the town, the Capital Planning Committee, the Disabilities Access Commission, and others to ensure that the transition plan becomes a reality. Many thanks to the Disability Access Commission for their tireless work on this important initiative. Vincent Owen reconstruction. I know you've heard about this before, and you'll hear about it later. The reconstruction of the VO will solve our biggest problem, that of unabated student population growth district-wide. This school will be larger, more energy efficient, and ADA compliant. Coupled with the town-wide redistricting, we'll be able to reduce the overcrowding at all of our elementary schools. As you can see from this slide, the town cost for this project is around $8 or $8.5 million, while the total cost of the project is $28.8 million about. The high school feasibility study, again partnering with the MSBA, this is a smart and necessary step to continue our long-range planning for the district. 2 minutes?
It's moved in second. Speaker's time be extended 2 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you. The high school feasibility study will determine the district's needs, best uses, and cost estimates for our high school facility. And as you can see, our share of that is $858,000. And finally, the Lynch School replacement, Lynch School roof replacement, not replacing the Lynch School yet. This has been actively failing for several years. We completed a design study earlier this year, and Capital Planning Committee has put this project forward for funding this fall. The great news is that we just found out that the MSBA, through their Green Repair Program, has accepted this project into their pipeline. And the MSBA then will pay a portion of that, as you can see from the slide. Finally, I want to leave you with our mission. Although we talk a lot here about buildings and budgets, these are merely tools in our quest to foster our students to become great learners and teachers, athletes and artists, compassionate and kind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is the town manager, Mary Ellen Lannon.
Good evening, folks. My name's Mary Ellen Lannon. Of course, I'm your town clerk as well as the acting town manager. And I basically wanted to thank the moderator, Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and town meeting members for giving me this opportunity to be here for you tonight. As you know, I took over in July, and basically I've been working diligently with the senior management, with Mark Toogood and Brian Keaveney, identifying the closeouts for fiscal year 2010, seeing where we stand on reversions, and then moving forward to the evaluation of the FY11 budget. It became very clear to me within the first couple of weeks of being in the position that we had a shortfall, and we additionally had the free cash error from the previous spring town meeting. So we've been very busy working, evaluating, creating cost analysis so that we can present to you tonight all of the warrant articles that you see before you. There's a variety of them. Article 4, 5, 6, and 9 deal with areas of reductions and also in areas of revenue enhancements in order to fill the shortfall in the current FY11 budget. We've also been working diligently, as many folks have already mentioned, so I won't reiterate or belabor the point, but we've been very successful in bringing together the collective bargaining units in order that we can respect the worker, identify the costs associated with those unknowns that the town of Winchester hasn't known about that for quite a while. And it allows us to have a much better projection for what we're looking for as we move forward in the FY12 budget, and to build a 3-year budget model so that we can be very mindful of the money that we do spend. I guess at this point I'd also like to thank the staff across the whole organization, not only my town clerk staff, who's been just amazing during this transition. I'd like to actually thank my family, because the kids and Steve have been wonderful. And I'd also like to just let everyone know that the staff at the town is extremely talented, and they have come forward no matter what the request, not only to support me, but to support the mission of the town. I think that people really have a fondness for what we do here, have a belief in what you folks do and provide in your position as members of volunteer groups and of town meeting. And so I just want to say thank you, and that I'm proud to work for you during this transition time, and I look forward to being able to give you some good solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker is the chairman of the planning board, Drew Bottaro. Mr. Bottaro.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, members of town meeting, town boards, officials. I'll try to catch up on the 5 minutes. Be brief tonight. The planning board's been fairly active on a few activities that are oriented towards looking towards the future, enhancing revenue. A lot of what enhances revenue is additional development that does not burden the town with extra costs. So we've been working a lot on our town center initiative, which is an offshoot of the master plan phase 1. We've done a lot of internal board discussions, some sketch-ups, mock-ups, some ideas just at the conceptual stage, and we're ready to actually have the next phase of town center conversations, December 1st, 8th, and 11th. Details you'll be reading about shortly. This is already, just by clarifying what the objectives are and the things that we're looking for that we consider positives, even though in draft stage and still not getting the input from you folks in the town in general, we've already gotten some response from the development community. What do you think about this? And this is promising. Turns out that being clear on what could work in the town, the developing community does respond. The risk of regulatory uncertainty goes down, and even this economy can move forward with proposals. Second thing that is related to the Town Center initiative but is externally driven is the MBTA's redevelopment or refurbishing of the train station. It's fortunate that with the efforts of Jason Lewis, the Planning Board does have a non-voting seat at the table to talk about planning initiatives that might affect this. The draft maps, if you will, of the town center and our planning concerns have gotten us to the table to talk, and we've been able to engage in some dialogue with the MBTA, which is better than no dialogue. We've been able to I hope, shortstop some ideas that, such as reduce the train stations from 2 to 1, which the MBTA did float through. Finally, there's a number of articles coming up that are what I would call tweaks, mop-up on the zoning bylaw recodification. Some of them are clearly the kind that, had they been noticed during the Scrivener's error period, would have been easy to fix, and they're just really, I'd call them in the neighborhood of typos. One seems to be more controversial and involves special permit requirements for non-conforming properties. We're very open to this discussion. We heard about the concerns about this very late, just on the eve of the town meeting warrant, and we would welcome the discussion on this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. French, John French from the library, chairman of the Library Trustees. Is Mr. French here? Well, he beat the schedule for 5 minutes. So. And that leaves one more, and that's the chairman of the Committee on Government Regulations, Mr. Anthony Conti. Just a second.
Oh, thank you. The Government Regulations Committee met and reviewed Articles 16 and 27 and found them in proper order.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we had one other person that was invited to speak, and that's the chairman of the Committee on Rules, Krista Russo, and she advised me that they were not speaking. She's here tonight, but they usually speak when they decide to vote somebody out of town meeting, and they're not doing that, so she chose not to speak tonight. And that ends our speakers under Article 1, and in accordance with the town bylaws, chapter section 2.21, we are required now to adjourn the meeting and to have the precincts gather and in the cafeteria to elect members. And the missing members we need 2 new members in Precinct 1, 1 new member in Precinct 4, 1 new member in Precinct 6, 1 new member in Precinct 7, and 1 in Precinct 8. So that's Precincts 1, 4, 6, 7, and 8 to meet and all elect 1 member. And let me advise you, ladies and gentlemen, there may be people that will show up in the cafeteria that want to be considered for these positions, and there may not be. Usually there's a recruiting effort of some kind, but we've had a couple of calls where people have been told about this rule, and so they may or may not be there. If there's nobody there, come on back, and we will take a recess for 15 minutes. The meeting is now recessed. Did you give me my 16 back? Yep.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to WinCam's live coverage of this first session of Winchester's Fall Town Meeting. I'm Alan Iden, and we're here in the WinCam studio. As you can, if you've just been watching, the Fall Town Meeting has just recessed after hearing reports under Article 1, which is reports of the town officers. They've recessed to fill some vacancies in town meeting slots, and they'll be coming back shortly. So let's just do a recap of what we have heard so far. Again, the only article we've had is Article 1, which is the reports of various chairmen of town boards. We heard first from the chairman of the Finance Committee, who discussed two main elements to be worked that the Finance Committee's been working on: contract settlements and capital requests. Chairman Peter Shimis said that the town would be quote unquote spending a lot of money at this meeting over the next 3 sessions. He said also that free cash for the town has dropped for the first time in many years. We heard from Tom Howley, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, who commented that it's essential for the town to preserve its bond rating to keep the cost of borrowing down. He said the Board of Selectmen believes that the senior management team that's in place for the town is a good excellent short-term solution for the town, and that they'll be making further moves in the spring, referring mostly to the fact that we have an acting town manager at this point. He said that all the unions in the town have dropped their opposition to a unified health care plan for the town, which was enabling the town to save approximately $800,000 this year. He also informed town meeting that Abbott Development has defaulted on their purchase of the Right Lock Farm, and they have paid some financial penalties for this. And the Board of Selectmen hopes that a new request for proposals will be brought to spring town meeting for development of part of that farm. He said there will be no increase in the water and sewer rates this year, and commented on a $1.4 million savings in energy costs that the town has realized due to energy conservation efforts over the past couple of years. He also commented on one other proposed project, which was a solar panel array proposed for the transfer station that could save $50,000 a year in energy costs for the town. Sarah Girardi, the chairman of the school committee, was next. Talked about some successes in the Winchester schools in academics, athletics, the creative areas, and compassionate areas. She said she commented on the visioning process for the Winchester High School, this high school which was built in 1974, occupied in 1974. She commented on the success in getting contract agreements with the various town unions, school unions, the advancements of school culture in reference particularly to the issue of bullying, and capital projects where this town is partnering with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in reconstruction of the Vincent Owens School, disability enhancements to disability access in the schools, future planning for the Winchester High School, and replacement of the Lynch School roof. Mary Ellen Lannon, the acting town manager and town clerk, was brief. She just commented on shortfalls in the budget and a free cash error that's going to be corrected that was done at spring town meeting. And most of all, she thanked the town staff and her family for their support in this transition. We last heard from Drew Pataro, chairman of the planning board, said that the planning board is looking to future development and continuing conversations on plans for the town center. Also watching and having dialogues with the MBTA regarding refurbishing the train station, and we'll be bringing some articles up for cleaning up errors in the recodification of the zoning bylaws that was passed in April of 2009. Well, that's where we stand. Again, at this we have some 20-some-odd articles, 29 articles to be taken up by this Springtown meeting. The moderator told us there'll be a session tonight. The next session will be on the 8th, and the final session hopefully will be on the 18th. A couple of items are going to be postponed. We've been informed that the report of the Personnel Board will be the first item on the postponed till, which is Article 3, will be postponed until the 18th, wrapping up some contract issues. The motion, Article number 12, to appropriate money for the reconstruction of the Vincent Owen Elementary School, will be the second item on the 18th, and that's waiting for a decision on the 17th about the amount of state reimbursement that'll be forthcoming. Article 13, which is appropriated sum of money for the feasibility study on the Winchester High School, will be taken up after the Vincent Owen decision is made. That'll be the third article, third item of business on the 18th. So we've got about 29 articles to go through. There will be some indefinite postponements, and some of them are housekeeping articles. But right now, we've just heard Article 1, again, the reports of the town officers. Town meeting will be back in a few minutes, probably to postpone Article 3 on the Personnel Board and move on to Article 4. So stay with us for our live coverage of this. Is the first session of Winchester's Fall Annual Town Meeting.
Huh? Yeah. I'll leave with you. Town meeting will now be in order. Article 2, to see if the town meeting under Article 2 of the Winchester Home Rule Charter will vote to declare vacant seats in certain town meeting members' precincts. It's moved and seconded, as reported earlier, that Article 2 be indefinitely postponed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to hear and act on the report of the Personnel Board and take any action in relation thereto. And it's moved and seconded by the Personnel Board with the approval of the Board of Selectmen as well, that it's moved and seconded that Article 3 be postponed to a time certain, and that time being the first order of business on the 18th of November, 2010. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of that motion for postponing to a time certain, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it, and motion carries. Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to increase the charge for each written demand issued by the collector, a fee not to exceed $30. And ladies and gentlemen, there are three motions here. Three articles. Article 4, which is to vote the new tax. Article 5, which is to make a free cash appropriation. And Article 6, which is to present a series of motions on decreasing prior appropriations. These three articles, 4, 5, and 6, are going to be presented by Selectman Fontana. And he's requested permission to discuss all three at the same time, but we will vote them one at a time, of course. And he's also asked that we put a motion here to postpone consideration of Article 4 and 5 until after completion of Article 6. And the reason for that is just a technicality. There's appropriation reductions in 6 that may impact the numbers in Article 5. So it's moved and seconded that Article 4 and 5 be postponed until after voting Article 6. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. And so now Mr. Fontana will speak to 4, 5, and 6, all in one presentation. As the lead presenter, Mr. Fontana, you have 10 minutes.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So just to be clear, because Article 5 deals with the free cash appropriation issue from the spring town meeting, it'll also be dependent upon how we vote for the motions within Articles 6 and Article 4. That dollar amount can change. So that's why we are doing Article 5 last. I'm going to talk tonight briefly about the financial picture for the town, and I'm going to use the basis for my discussion will be what we talked about in the spring. And then also there was a financial letter drawn up with the senior town management staff from the Board of Selectmen to town meeting members that went out via email 2 days ago and should have arrived to you by mail today. It was a little bit late, but it was as we thought of it, as sort of a voluntary information document to try to give you some background information on the financial picture for the town. It's not required as part of the articles in our town meeting, but it's something that the board wanted to do to make sure that you felt fully informed. And I will speak to that a bit tonight, and then we're more than happy to answer your questions. I think in the spring we outlined before that we all share some sort of common priorities. And as well as we think about what's important to us in terms of at the center of this, in terms of our personal and families, is our community. We also talked about what we felt was sort of our common values, and that is a town that really is focused in terms of a lifetime of learning and the life cycle of living, which really it talks about sort of the quality of life and the common values that we all appreciate. When we bring it to the financial picture about how, let me just make sure.
There we go. When we talk about the financial picture, a key economic fundamental principle that we talked about in the spring was the idea of budgeting. And when you budget an economic number that you might choose to increase in the budget just for a static one-year increase, you own that obligation, that liability in perpetuity. So one of the items tonight we'll be talking about is collective bargaining and wage increases. If we grant a wage increase through collective bargaining, that liability, that obligation flows through the budget in continuity in fiscal 12, 13, and 14 and beyond. The next important component to understand then is the growth factor of that liability or that obligation. If you choose to offer in a collective bargaining agreement a wage increase each year, that growth factor then compounds. So it's important to make sure you understand that basic economic fundamental principle of how that can build up if you think about it in the expense side of a budget. And so the one particular factor that we face as a town is that generally 80% of our revenue stream comes from property taxes. And our property taxes grow on average about 2.5% a year, given Prop 2.5, and there's a little bit of growth factor in there for the town. The other 10% times 2 is local receipts at 10% and state aid and other. Right now, state aid has been flat to potentially down, and local receipts is cyclical with the economy. The constraining factor we have then is expense growth has been outstripping revenue growth. It was the board's assessment at the end of fiscal 10 and immediately as we entered fiscal 11 that there was significant risk to the town. The risk factors for the town were increasing in number. The risk factors to the town were growing in dollar risk, and the risk factors to the town were coming at a faster time pace and accelerating than many of us had sort of appreciated earlier on. When we reviewed the fiscal 10 budget with the executive team and we looked at fiscal 11, it became clear that the budget had many holes. There were several uncertainties that the town was not dealing with promptly, particularly collective bargaining. Healthcare continued to be a key fundamental risk. There was an annual financial cash burn of our operating reserves that was occurring and growing at a fast rate. And we had some service quality issues like reverse 911 failure. So the executive team and the board made it a priority to swiftly and immediately deal with the fiscal 11 budget deficits, as well as in tandem in our dialogues with the capital planning and the finance committee, the town moderator, and others who've been longstanding volunteers of the town, making sure that we put through a multi-year strategy, a 3 to 5 year model for our operating and capital budgets to sustain the quality of life and services that we expect in the town. And a key underpinning of all of this is maintaining our AAA rating. One of only a dozen towns in Massachusetts, this AAA bond rating is a critical asset that allows us to fund our debt borrowing costs at very low interest rates and puts us in a much better financial condition than in many of our peer communities. What we immediately did when we sat down is I like to think of things in blocks, and we identify what we call the 5-point plan, a 5-point plan to address these top 3 priorities. The first one was to refresh and update and develop a new operating reserve policy. How were the reserves of the town, the free cash of the town going to be used either with the budget, deficit issues, or to fund projects in the future? The second was to immediately identify expense initiatives that could be reduced. And then the third was to identify revenue opportunities we could attack to increase the revenue base of the town. The fourth and key item, more on a structural, longer-term basis, in a memo submitted to town management, was to evaluate what we had for restructuring and reorganization opportunities within the town. Those would be significant multi-year improvements, either efficiencies or effective, better use of capital assets, better use of our dollars to expend, cheaper ways to provide service, and hopefully that would attack both the revenue and expense side and make significant decrease in the cash burn of the town in the fiscal budgets from 11, 12, and 13. Only after we did all of these steps, and these are still going on to this day, we've taken multiple revisions to the fiscal 11 issues. Fortunately, we've been able to reduce that budget from originally a deficit of north of 400,000 to 270. We have actions in place to bridge that budget deficit. And then all of November in the board meetings, we will be assessing and looking at the reorganization and restructuring opportunities, and there'll be more dialogue with that as you attend the meetings or in the newspapers or on TV. Only after we conclude that activity in November will the board then deliberate and have an opinion on whether an operating override is necessary to either work on the budget deficit extending into fiscal 12 or to replenish our operating reserves. As I said, the board developed a new operating reserve policy. The key point to understand is that we want to make sure that the reserves are thought of exactly that, as a reserve. It's not free cash to spend, it's not excess cash. It really is a savings account for the bank, in the bank, to deal with unforeseen risks to the enterprise, to the town, and also to fund non-recurring special items. It's not to fund recurring expenses and recurring obligations, because then you will never get a balanced budget and expenses will always exceed revenues. The key numbers to think about in our financial analysis with our financial advisor, Peter Frazier, and our discussions with the rating agencies and the experience of the board and town management is that a range of a minimum of 6% reserves and a high end of 10% would keep us in a proper range to maintain our AAA and also to address the financial structure of the town. What you can see here is some items that we've outlined that will deal with the fiscal 11 budget deficit, and we will cover those in Articles 4, 6, and 9, and then the result will be in Article 5. The main point here is you can see that expense initiatives outweigh revenue enhancements. The first priority always is how can you deliver services more efficiently, more effectively? How do you spend $1 and get higher services, or how do you have the same level of service and spend for less than $1? So you'll see that there's many more expense initiatives than there are revenue enhancements. A key template for evaluating restructuring and reorganization opportunities and expense and revenue enhancements are: what is the return on investment for that project, for that service? Is it a core investment? When we think about our education, when we think about our services, we need to make sure that what impact is that going to have to our quality of life? So there's a simple but objective criteria, whether it's a request from one department, a request from a board or a committee, that the board can quickly filter. And that's thinking of things in terms of its return on investments. Are they core assets to the town? Are they core services to the town? What quality of life do we want to maintain? The last slide I'll bring up, which will end my discussion, and then I'll turn it over to the town moderator, deals with our operating reserves. The key number to look at here is that as we were in the spring and today, we're very close to the top end of our reserve targets. In the spring of 2010, we talked about having a reserve position approximately 9.8%. After we did the certification of our cash, even with the revenue shortfalls from fiscal 10 and other adjustments, we lost only 10 basis points to our reserve versus our estimate, and we stand at 9.7 today. The difficult position we're all in, though, is that we've been pulled forward 1 year faster than we had expected in terms of the impact to our reserves based on the risk factors that the town is settling. We quickly get to the low end of a reserve target at 6% as you look at sort of the expenses and the obligations that could potentially be funded through town meeting as we work through the articles in this meeting and in future meetings. And that is part of our key decisions we have to think about, is how do we bridge the budget deficit and how do we use our reserve picture. So that is the most urgent message that probably could deliver. You'll probably see it in the voices and the actions of the town manager, the acting town manager, and the assistant town manager and the board. Just 2 more minutes, John.
It's moved and second. Speaker's time be extended 2 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
But what you'll also know is that these financial numbers, although they may look alarming, the comfort you should take is to know that we actually have our hands on the wheel. Management has taken a very proactive step in moving the budget cycle fast and earlier. We're actually defining all those risks that I talked about before, as opposed to being exploding holes and kick the can to the next year. We've actually started to quantify those risks. The collective bargaining agreements are being settled, the healthcare program is being put in place, services are being addressed, holes are being addressed. So there's a reality that the board is grounded in and a determination to recommend policies and actions that are in the best interest of town. So here we have a final discussion on the reserve picture. What we've tried to do is flow through what is the most significant number, which is the fiscal 12 deficit. There are various factors that have contributed to that, but the most simple way to think about it is there was revenue shortfalls in 10, Those models carry forward to fiscal 11. There's more uncertainty on some of the revenue picture. Some of the expense picture is higher than what was forecast. Some more conservative nature in terms of some of the modeling. Some of the risk factors are being quantified. That picture together aggregates to a replenishment in our reserves faster than we might have thought. So that'll be the particular discussion that we'll have to work on tonight as we go through the articles and in future meetings in November for the board, November 18th, and then going into the spring.
Thank you, sir. Okay, that completes Mr. Fontana's presentation. And if you turn to page 11 in your motion book, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 motions. And Mr. Fontana has recommended that all of these be approved. And we will take them one at a time. And if there are any questions about the presentation, feel free to bring them up as part of any one of these motions. Okay, the first one, it's moved and seconded that fiscal year 2011 health insurance account 9140 voted under Article 7 at the Springtown meeting be reduced by $111,212. Further on the question, Mr. Fontana. Microphone.
John, just so we'll page forward here to, can I go back one previous? There we go. John, on Article 6 here, I just wanted to clarify, as you go through the particular motions for Article 6, the board has taken a vote and made a determination that we will go ahead and continue with the motion for the Planning Board Master Plan 2.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you correctly.
Okay. What we wanted to clarify was as you go through the motions, each one, motion 6, the last one's toward the end, Master Plan Article 2, which number 2, which is the traffic study, and the Planning Board Center Initiative. The Board of Selectmen has taken a vote, and we are going to continue with the motion to not fund the Master Plan Component 2, which is the traffic study, which is the $40,000. But we also took a vote that we wanted to indefinitely postpone the Planning Board Center Initiative of $60,000.
Well, you can make the motion for indefinite
Correct.
postponement when that article
just wanted you to
motion
be aware
comes
as we
up.
go through,
We're going to
so
do
we
it
take the
one at a time. Okay, the first motion is a motion for account 9140 to reduce it by $111,212. May we hear from the Finance Committee, please?
The Finance Committee has recommended adoption of this, but we'd also like to point out the nature of this particular money, which is essentially this is a grant that the town received into the school committee, which the school committee has graciously offered to use to pay for their portion of some of their portion of health care, which we are now reducing from the budget health care, which is probably a good use of the money. But we recommend adoption of this.
Further on the question? All those in favor of that reduction, please say aye. Well, you got to speak up. Yes, sir.
Mr. Moderator, Ron Clark, Precinct 2. I'm not sure exactly where my question is appropriate relative to Article 6, but it's my understanding that the deficit that we're looking at is partly due to the $123,000 severance package for the former town manager. And from what I'm reading in the newspaper, it seems to have been a very unusual deal, and I'm not sure the town meeting knows enough about that or knows as much as they would like to know about that. And I would like to know what the deal was and why the town meeting didn't know more about the financial implications of it. And I would take your advice as to how to phrase that and to whom it should be addressed other than the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, sir. No, I think the question is in order, and the reason, although it's really rather abstract for any one of the particular motions, but all of these motions are being made in accordance with Mr. Fontana's argument that we need to cut to avoid the potential here of losing our AAA and having our bonds cost more in the future. And his last chart suggested that if you believe the numbers on his last chart, and if they're correct, that we are going to need a free cash override in 2011. If those numbers are correct, because we're down below 6, which is the AAA. So I think the question's appropriate. Any question on why we're not saving money from other budgets as opposed to this one? So if anybody chooses to answer that, Mr. Howley.
So let me see if I can be as informative as possible. As I mentioned before, I think the board is very confident about the decision we made. We did not talk about, obviously, and we won't tonight, any of the particular issues that had to do with the personnel performance that factored into our decision making. But in terms of the question that was raised with regards to the contract, the contract for the town manager did include a severance agreement. It began with the initial contract 6 or 7 years ago, providing for a 6-month severance. It was, and upon renewal, that was changed to be to add a month for every additional year of service up to 9 months. And at the time that we entered into the agreement, we were advised by the consultant that we had for the search committee that, in fact, it would be unlikely that we would be able to attract anybody of the kind of ability and sort of professional stature that a town like Winchester would require unless we in some way provided protection in the event that the contract was either was not renewed or was terminated not for cause. This was the advice that we were given. That somebody who is a mature executive professional who's running a large corporation, and in this case an $83 million corporation or whatever it was then, particularly in a political environment, would expect that if we chose to not renew or to terminate the agreement, that in fact they would have some protection in time, and what was presented to us was that it could take up to a year to find a new job, that they would want some period of time in which to know that they could go out and do that. Since then, as we made the payment and it was made in one lump sum, all of us have done some soul searching with regards to this. I can tell you that, in fact, severance agreements are quite common. They exist with any of the other comparable communities. I suppose we could find some that perhaps don't exist. When I called the Massachusetts Municipal Association and asked to talk to people there about their knowledge and experience with regards to this, they said it would be surprising if we could find a community comparable to Winchester that did not have that in their town manager's agreement. The standard MMA contract provides for a severance payment. I was advised that typically in the standard model agreement that it's a 12-month payment, but that the payments actually typically are negotiated to be somewhere between 6 and 12 months. But I think there are some other fair questions. I think well, let me finish with that. So I also wanted to check and see if I could actually talk to any other town managers. I did not, we have not had the opportunity to do a broad survey, but taking the advice that we heard both from our consultant and from the MMA, that in fact this was what we did was entirely common and standard. I then talked to the town manager from Lexington and also the town manager from Westboro. The town manager from Lexington has a severance agreement for 6 months. The town manager from Westboro has one for 12 months. A question that was raised, I guess what I want to say, at least regards to that, is I think that the basic judgment, I think, was sound. There are two things, though, that I think we need to look at, and I know our board is going to look at closely. One is, should this payment have been made in a lump sum? Or should it have stopped when new employment was gained? If that had been the case, Mr. Kleckner was very fortunate to be hired very quickly. The payment that we would have made would have been far smaller. Now, when I looked at the standard agreement and looked also at, talked to the two other town managers, they do not have such a provision. Their payment is lump sum, and that's the way it is. So I do think, though, in March, when we proceed towards permanent hire, I think that is something that our board will look at very closely. The second thing, though, I think is perhaps a little more significant, and that is that the payment in the standard contract and also in the contracts in Lexington and Westboro, the severance payment is paid not if the contract simply is not renewed, but it's paid if the board during the term of the contract decides without cause to terminate it. And we did not do that. We provided for payment that in fact was available if we chose not to renew. Now, the only thing I can say about that is that at the time of those, there were only two of us that were on the board. I don't remember the specific discussions that we had other than in fact this contract was negotiated, and that this particular point was negotiated, and that the concern at the time generally was that even if we just simply chose not to renew, that the town manager in fact would still be faced with 6 months or 9 months or 12 months perhaps of looking for a job. And whether that was a good judgment or not, I can assure you that the board will be looking at this very carefully going forward. I can imagine that that will not be the case in any new contract, but that was the judgment we made. Now, the other thing I'd like to say is that the $112,000 payment, which is a significant payment, has not contributed to the deficit. And somebody can correct me if they think I'm wrong about this. But in fact, we have not made this decision for financial reasons. But in fact, the senior management team that we have in place, if, for example, we were to continue with this team until the end of June, the amount of the severance payment would be fully absorbed within the existing town manager's budget. We are saving money under the current circumstances. It will be eventually absorbed within the town manager's budget. If we in fact find a new town manager and that town manager is paid less than the former one, there'll probably still be some savings if that happens before June. If we go all the way to the end of June, we would expect that we will have fully absorbed it within the existing budget. The only possible exception, quite work this out yet, is whether in fact we will provide any stipends or overtime in connection with the town clerk's office, and we simply have not worked that detail out. But that's what we know about it. We made those decisions in good faith. I can understand why people are concerned about them. I think we will approach those issues differently in the future. But we had reasons at the time, and I think the core circumstance regarding the severance payment, I think, was sound, but I think that there were some aspects of it that clearly we need to do a better job on.
Further on the question? Yes, sir, on a follow-up.
I'm a little confused still why someone who needed to be attracted with a $100,000 severance package was also, contract wasn't renewed. It doesn't make sense to me that if he was so good to get that deal, why he was let go. And I'm neither a fan nor an enemy of the former town manager. I just don't understand the logic. Also, there may be a way to absorb this money, but only because we're not paying the full salary of a town manager. We're very lucky, I think, to have somebody who's competent in place to do the job, I imagine, for less. But that's really not fair to the acting town manager, and it's just a stroke of luck for the Board of Selectmen.
Further on the question, are you ready for the main question? Mr. Friesel.
Mr. Moderator, to the Selectman Fontana, I guess, and to the Chair of the Finance Committee. I'm just working my way through these Articles 5 and 6 here, and I'm trying to understand the numbers, and someone I hope can add them up for me. In Article 5, we're asked to reduce free cash because we over-appropriated free cash by $406,000. So I'd like to know what that means. Did we appropriate free cash we didn't have? Is that what we did? I just would like to know why we're doing this in Article 5. That number doesn't square with Article 6, which says we're reducing $274,000 because we have a deficit in the year fiscal 11, which we're currently in. But yet we don't have an explanation as to how do we get to that deficit and how is it $274,000. And then we see a new slide tonight where we have total expense reductions of $315,000 and change. And we may or may not have one of them. The $60,000 is in the air at the moment. How does that number relate to 274? How does it relate to 406? And then we have a total expense and revenue of 374, which relies on an article we haven't even talked about yet, which is Article 9. So does everything to be in balance for 2011 require us to sum these expense reductions, adopt these revenue enhancements in order for us to get there? And how does any of that relate to a so-called over-appropriation of free cash, which is the first motion? And this is just so that we all are clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it, not to be critical.
Mr. Fontana.
I'll take a stab at the high level, and then if the Finance Committee Chair wants to deal with Article 4 a little bit, and then we can get into sort of the meat of the other articles if we need to. So the first confusing thing is that the articles are not laid out necessarily in logical order. There is the articles sort of come up, if you will, in terms of scheduling and so forth in the booklet. So they aren't sort of laid out in a linear fashion that you do Article 2, 3, 4, and it adds up to 5 or 6. So that is one of the reasons it appears to be bouncing around from Article 6, then to 4, then to 9, then to 5. So you have to bear with that a little bit when we put the recipe together. So dealing with your first question on Article 4, as best as I can simply summarize, and I'll let the Finance Committee Chair talk, if you recall in the spring, there was a lot of last-minute negotiations up at the counter here between the then town manager and the then Finance Committee Chair, and they were working some numbers out as they went to balance, because there were a lot of some changes on what was being appropriated. As it turns out, the number that was voted on by town meeting was, for that budget coming out of the spring, was a request that exceeded more than what was necessary, and thus the approximate $406,000. So it was an error to the budget on a positive $406 that isn't needed, that needs to be returned to the reserves. Now, what we didn't want to do when we found the budget deficit of first $400,000 and then we reduced it to $275 is to say, we had more of an appropriation in the spring, we can offset the two and return the difference. We didn't think that was appropriate. So we have one measure to return the money to its appropriate place in the bank account before we ask for more money to come back, as opposed to combining the two. So the first motion, Article 4, is good news. We don't need the 406. It was over-appropriated. We return that to the bank. Then, Article 5, right, correct. And then when we deal with Articles 4s and we deal with Article 6 and Article 9, we're dealing with the revenue and the expense deficit that contributes to the 275. What we wanted to do, though, as we looked at initiatives, is we didn't want to just coincidentally match up and have expenses and revenues equal the deficit of 275. We wanted to have more projects to select from so that you had an a la carte, if you will, to choose how to solve the budget deficit. And so we identified projects and initiatives that total $375,000. So there's actually potentially more savings, either in expense reductions or revenue enhancements on the board than we need to solve the budget deficit. But not everything may get voted on by town meeting, so you didn't want to play it too close and match 275 in initiatives with 275 budget deficit. Thus, we have the $375,000 number. Now, 100 of the 375 has to do with two articles that we had funded in the spring for the planning board, the master plan part 2, which is the traffic study, and the downtown initiative, which is Article 30. Those aggregate to $100,000. That money has been appropriated. If we choose to continue to appropriate those articles, and that would mean that we're not for those motions, then that money is already taken, if you will, out of the reserves and already accounted for. If we actually choose to only fund one of the two projects, which is what the board has taken a vote on and is recommending, we're recommending that we fund the downtown center initiative of $60,000, but we're recommending that we not fund the traffic study, which is the master plan 2. That would result in a $40,000, call it savings, if you will, that would go back into reserves. Okay, so thus there are more savings than there is a budget deficit based on how you vote. If you don't choose to adopt the meals tax, that would mean that there's $59,000 left to solve the budget deficit, for example, in Article 9. Does that suffice?
Mr. Friesel. Wait a minute, the microphone's coming.
That's very helpful. That means there's no correspondence necessarily of these numbers, so they shouldn't tie necessarily. The second thing is you're going to have to amend Article 6, because as it reads in our book, it's not consistent with the slide as we go through the motions. And third, I think you're saying that it doesn't matter if we adopt the revenue enhancements. It won't matter in terms of balancing the 2011 budget. It's just a question of revenue enhancements. And then the last point is that what we do with the 60,000, I guess that's the one that's in question, whether you support that one or not, means either we have more left in free cash or less left in free cash, depending on how town meeting goes on the $60,000 number.
So your first point is correct. There is no coincidence with the numbers. Everything was taken as a discrete analysis and discussion, not out of convenience for rounding. The second is correct. Based on how we vote on the articles, the appropriation of dollars back to the reserve account out of the budget can vary from what Article 5 says, depending upon how we vote on Article 6, 9, and 4. That's why we're taking Article 5 last. And lastly, you indicated about the revenues. For example, as we go through the initiatives and the motions, if the town meeting follows what the Board of Selectmen has recommended, then we'll have enough money to cover the deficit and we'll be returning $40,000 extra to the reserve account. But if town meeting chooses to not approve a motion for an expense reduction or for a revenue increase, we'll have to do some reconcilement because we need to solve the $275,000 budget deficit in one combination of another based on initiatives we outlined.
Okay, that's helpful because that means the real deficit in 2011 is this 275 target. We've got to get there somehow by a combination of these reductions and revenue enhancements.
Exactly. And originally, a month ago, it was upwards of 400,000, but initiatives have already been in place that didn't need to be voted on, that could be taken by immediate action by the town executives to bring that down by 125. So we've already been working on sort of peeling the onion, right from the start.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Quill.
Mr. Moderator, to Mr. Fontana, excuse me. You just stated that we need 275, is that correct? Okay. And you're going to revert $40,000 back into free cash if everything passes that you've presented?
As of the board's recommendation to town meeting, based on the motions that are indicated in these articles, correct. If you follow the board's recommendation, which would be to support each of these expense reductions, the one that we would be indefinitely postponing would be the town center initiative. By indefinitely postponing, that means we're not reducing that allocation, so that project would get funded. And if you also affirm the motions on the revenue enhancements, then that would be correct. Then we would have a total savings, if you will, of $374,000 less $40,000, which would be $334,000. The budget deficit is approximately $275,000, so approximately that $40,000 would go back into reserves, if you will, as sort of an overage, and that's Article 5 would be adjusted from 404,000 approximately to 444,000 to be reappropriated.
Yes, sir. Mr.
Okay,
Swanton.
thank you.
To make a logical conclusion from Mr. Freisel's argument, I move that consideration of Article 5 be postponed until after Article 9.
I'm sorry?
I move that consideration of Article 5 be postponed until after Article 9.
We've already done that.
We have?
We're doing 6.
We're doing,
I didn't think we
would
did
do
anything with
4,
9
6,
yet.
and 9 before 5. Mr. Swanton just wants to clarify that that's correct. That Article 9, which deals with the meals tax, Article 4, which deals with the demand
Right.
increase, and Article 6, which is dealing with the revenue reduction, expense reductions, those would come before Article 5.
We'll take care of that after we take care of 6, if you've got a motion to make after 6.
Okay.
Right. Further on the question. The question comes on, I'm sorry. Just stand up if I don't see you.
Mr. Moderator, I'm wondering whether it would make sense to take Articles 4 and 9 where we're adding revenue before we start subtracting. And that way we might not have to subtract as much.
Okay. It might be. But that's not the way it's laid out. I think, I hope this is helpful, let me just try something to see if I can clarify what I think is happening here. Last year in the annual town meeting, a mistake was made because of the confusion in creating the 2 revolving accounts. And if you remember, we had to change all the motions on the Finance Committee's famous yellow sheet because it wasn't done in time. And there was a lot of confusion on that, and it was done on the floor. And as a result of that confusion, we over-appropriated 400 grand. When that was discovered, and it was discovered, by the way, by the chairman of the Finance Committee, Joe Peters, after the fact, I believe. Pardon? Okay. And so having done that, what we're going to do here tonight is just put that money back. We took it out of the bank account and we're putting it back. That makes just good common sense. And then, if you focus on what the selectmen are saying, the fiscal year 11 budget, which started on July 1st, is, and we're, what, 30% through it, is in deficit. The money we appropriated is not enough based on the forecast we have going forward. And the selectmen's position is, hey, let's do a couple of things. Let's raise the meal tax to come up with some of that. Let's take some of these articles, and they voted unanimously to do all of these, although there's some negotiations going on with the planning board now, offline from the debate here. And then we will be able to match up, if we will, the rest of this year. But the real issue, the very real issue, is the issue that's in Mr. Fontana's last slide, which says taking the town staff has done an evaluation of what's going to happen in the next 3 months while we do the budget. And that's going to show that we're going to take our free cash down by $3 million. And when that happens, when we go out for bids, if we pass the Vincent Owen School, we are going to lose our A rating. Because by our own standards, which Moody's has, we are going to drop below 6%. So in order to save that, it isn't being mentioned, but I understand it's public, that the recommendation is on the table to do a general override in January for about $2 million. And that isn't being debated here tonight, but that's on the table for them. And that's going to, and so they're trying to make sure that they got all the savings they can, not necessarily for fiscal year 11. 274 is a peanut. We're talking about $3 million next year, and this town meeting has got to recognize that we've got 3 issues coming up. The Vincent Owen School, the $1 million for the high school, and the need for a general override in January, in addition to the thing. And that is the main issue here, and if the selectmen disagree with that, I would like to hear that, because I think we're losing focus. We're focusing on a small $274,000 when we should be focusing on your last slide.
John, thank you. Those are all good points. So what the selectmen would like to recommend, both for principal philosophy and for priority going forward, is in dealing with the deficit or any financial condition, we would like to address expense reductions first before revenues. So the selectmen would like to take Article 6 first before Articles 4 and 9 to send a message and to know that when you balance a budget, the first thing you look is to get expenses in order before you look to put revenue enhancements out there. So thus, it's our priority to deal with Article 6 first, then we will get to Article 4 and 9. With regards to the operating override that John referred to, my slide actually in here indicated that, right here, that our 5-point strategic plan that the board adopted is to first establish the reserve policy, which we talked about, then to identify near-term expense reductions and revenue enhancements, which we're doing in fiscal 11, that will carry over as well to fiscal 12, then a more structural assessment of restructuring and reorganization opportunities throughout the month of November, and from that period, the board then will deliberate based on analysis and policies that executive leadership has brought to us and their recommendation of an operating override. The board will then look at that and then make a recommendation to this town about what our fiscal picture looks like and how to best address the fiscal shortfall in 12, as well as the operating reserve picture in maintaining the AAA rating. So we're doing it in a very methodical and systematic manner, but we hope to have that completed through this town meeting and into the next few weeks in November.
Okay, you ready for the questions in Article 6, ladies and gentlemen? The first question, which is a recommendation, positive recommendation of Finance Committee, is for the health insurance reduction in the amount of $111,212. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Second motion. It's moved and seconded that the general insurance account be reduced by $10,000. Do we have a recommendation positive on that? You might want to state what your recommendations are, at least for...
You want me to do them all?
If you want, yeah,
Okay.
save some time.
Yeah, the Finance Committee has voted on all of the motions on Article 6, and we recommend favorable action on all of them.
Okay, so that, the second motion for the reduction of $10,000 from the general service account. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. The third one is to reduce compensation by $10,000, workers' compensation. That is the positive recommendation of the Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Fiscal year 2011 Engineering Department Personal Services be reduced by $32,000. That has a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next motion, moved and seconded that the building budget be reduced by $11,000. I'm sorry, $11,900, and other expenses be reduced by $25,000. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Next motion, it's moved and seconded that Phase 2 Winchester Master Plan voted under Article 29 be reduced by $40,000. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, most assuredly. So the first one is the Phase 2 Winchester Master Plan to be reduced by $40,000. That's a recommendation of the Board of Selectmen. May we hear from the Planning Board? And that's recommended by the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Board of Selectmen, for asking us to speak. This has all been very grave financial news, and it's all been new to us, and we've not actually had, as a planning board, the time to meet with the full Board of Selectmen at any one time. There have been various subsets that have shown up to meet quorums, but we haven't actually had the time for the full dialogue. So We have it here. Let me tell you what this was for and what we're concerned about might happen if it goes away. So let me talk about our needs. I may channel some of my history as a FinCom chairman and talk about some of the broader questions on the finance, but I do want to focus on our needs. The bulk of that, well, let me a little history. When we proposed to do the master planning process, which was the first time in over half a century, back, I think it was 2006, don't hold me to the exact year, it was represented to be 2 phases, 75,000 each phase. A multi-year process, engagement with the town. We've completed phase 1. Phase 2, through some discussions, well, through some experience gained, through some discussions, went from 75 to 60 to 40 on the hope that we could use as much of this available money to get matching grants. We've gotten smart about that, but we need the money to get the matching grants. That's broad picture. Now, specifically on this one, what are the topics? I'm going to forget some of them, but the natural resources, transportation and circulation. Now, I want to try to not confuse the town meeting. The Board of Selectmen is the street commissioners. The planning board, under state law, in the master planning process, is responsible for traffic and circulation. Clearly, those responsibilities overlap. If you want to think of street commissioner, I think of that as a little bit of the static, traffic and circulation more dynamic. Here's the specific things we're concerned about with the traffic and circulation that we've already ferreted out with some preliminary work. One, we learned through some very preliminary analyses we got access to that 45% of the traffic down Johnson Road originates outside Winchester and terminates outside Winchester. It's become a through street. We are concerned, we don't have answers. That's why we've got the money in there to get some studies. We are concerned about ways of traffic calming or traffic redirecting through the Vincent Owen area. So if you're concerned about that traffic, I think the answer of just putting up a stoplight might not be the right answer. It might be, but it might not be. We need some help studying that. The second thing is a bigger fish, and we just need to get prepared for this. It involves the 128 Route 93 intersection redevelopment. We've had some difficulties already. I think we're making some traction. Getting the state and the highway agencies to realize Winchester is affected by that and by the Montvale Ave restructuring, because there's people that cut down. Mr. Grenzbeck is better at traffic than I am. But basically, traffic flows like water. Whenever you have a little bit of a restriction one place, it flows another place. There is a lot of traffic that goes, and this is amazing to me, but it appears to be true. A lot of traffic that goes from Montvale Ave, down Washington, through town, through the Grove Street area, and out Winthrop Street, and connects that way to other parts of our metropolitan area. We don't know the ripple effects. We just want to be prepared, so if and when the dialogue is going to happen, we have thought about it. We've got some studies in place. We've got some matching money. We can be invited to the dialogue and try to protect the flow. So if you're concerned about traffic on North Washington, please let us be prepared with this money. I'm going to rotate to part Finance Committee Chairman Emeritus mode. I don't know from everything I've heard and that this money needs to be taken out of the FY11 budget at the fall town meeting. We still may have time, if we haven't had the opportunity, hadn't had the need by then, to reduce it some in the spring town meeting. So I just would like us to remain armed rather than wait until spring town meeting to try to vote this in again that we can't access till July, ties our hands. I'm just concerned that this is a little bit jumping the gun, and I realize there's a lot of pieces in motion, Article 4, Article 9, revenue, other expenses. I just wonder whether we have to do this right now. I also wonder, and I don't want to step on any other department's toes, I thought I saw a lot of paper flying around the last weeks. I thought I saw another list of possible expense reductions. I don't think this is the only list. I just don't think this money, which is really one-time capital kind of money, not operating money, is the right way to plug operating deficits. Thank you.
Okay, further on the question. Yes, way up back. Ms. Marcus.
Mr. Moderator, Candace Van Aken, Precinct 4. I have some very real concerns over this recommendation. If you go back even to your opening comments or your opening prayer about how this town meeting is about tomorrow, this is an important process. This is a very important document. And for us to abort it or to delay it at this point, I'm not sure that that's the best place to find this money. I suspect that there are other places, maybe some more creative ideas of where $40,000 could come from rather than coming from this planning document. As a town meeting member, I have been waiting 6 years for this document to help guide my votes about planning and about zoning issues. I'm still waiting for it. So I hope that you would vote no on this reduction.
Okay, further on the question? Yes, ma'am. You have your hand up right there, yep.
Mr. Moderator, this is through you to the Planning Board, Mr. Bertaro. I'm just a little confused. Are you saying that you want us to consider not approving the $40,000 reduction, and where does the $60,000 piece of it fit in? So that's my question, then I also have a comment really quickly.
Yes. So the question, Mr. Bertaro, is she's unclear as to whether you're recommending a yes or no on this reduction, and is also interested on whether you're recommending a yes and no on the next motion.
We're asking that you vote no on this proposed reduction on the 40,000, and we understand that the Board of Selectmen is actually going to move indefinite postponement of the 60,000 anyway. So I don't really, I can talk about it if someone wants to, but that's...
No, we'll take care of this one first. You have a comment, ma'am?
Yes. One of the things I was really impressed by the presentation at the very start was talking about what a community means, and clearly it seems it's very important, and they've identified one of the things that makes Winchester so special is sort of the quality of life. And I personally think that we really need to get our act together when it comes to traffic through this town. They've identified an issue, the Montvale Ave 128 or 93. We also haven't really, talked a lot about the fact that the hospital traffic is going to start getting a lot worse. I live over by Johnson Road, and it's appalling how fast the cars go down there and how much traffic goes through. I think that it's a really important piece of the overall planning and quality of life of this town that we really wrap our arms around the sort of the traffic patterns and are prepared when these things that take place outside of our town are brought up under discussion, that we can come to the table saying, we've looked into these things and these are our concerns and we need you to address them. So I guess that's another reason in my mind to not take away the $40,000 from the planning board right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You ready for the question? Mr. Conti, and then this gentleman down here. Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You know, if we can't cut $40,000 out of a very, frankly, insubstantial matter like a study, how are we going to address the really serious structural problems that the town has in its spending problem? We can always, the people who are in favor of any particular spending proposal can always cry that this is the end of the world if I don't get my 40 grand. But frankly, we've got serious problems. If we can't cut a lousy $40,000 for a study, we're never going to be able to solve the town's fiscal problems. I say that we bite the bullet now and stand up. The Board of Selectmen have looked at this very seriously. They are not a fly-by-night body. They're a serious group that have studied this matter and found that this is, in the order of priorities, something that the town can live without. And I ask that we support the Board of Selectmen and vote to deny this $40,000 expenditure. Thank you.
Okay, this gentleman, and then I sense we're ready for the vote.
Thanks. Bennett Hart, Precinct 3. I think there may be more to this than just a study. I have a question for Mr. Bottero. And by the way, I'm actually a town meeting representative to the Master Plan Steering Committee, so I've been going to meetings regarding the development of this plan. And Mr. Bottero, maybe you could speak to a point you alluded to earlier, which is it's not just about this traffic study, it's also about the development of the final master plan and what we do from that, which actually it will be an overhaul, hopefully, of our outdated zoning code. So perhaps you could speak to the schedule, Mr. Bottero, regarding the completion of the master plan and then the ultimate work on our zoning bylaw.
The plan schedule was to resume the master plan, I'll call it Phase 2 process, January, February of this year. The chapters include not just transportation and circulation, but natural resources, open space, infrastructure, which can include water and sewer, a lot of other things that the Capital Planning Committee is largely on top of, but need to be thought about as well. Broader topics. We can build to some extent, we're trying to build as much as we can upon some existing studies and reports that have been done. We're going to need to have process, we're going to need to publish, we're going to need to pull it all together, print it, that's not cheap, and circulate it. That's just what's important. So the process there, depending upon, I'll call them distractions, but they're all important things when they come up, like the train station. Was expected to be another 18 months from January, roughly. And we learned from Phase 1 that, right or wrong, we think we end up being as good or better writers than the paid-for consultants, so we're going to cut that down. We just think we can tie it all together, but it takes some time, and if we get the intent was this not to be all spent by June of 2011 in the fiscal year. That's why it's a separate warrant article, not part of the operating budget. It stands on its own multi-year. The expectation was it was going to be about a 2-year from last spring town meeting process. So that was, I think, part one.
See if you can wrap that up, Mr. Bottero.
And then the zoning part is going to be, the zoning part is in the master plan, I'm sorry, in the town center initiative. That's just the zoning for the town center related. Other zoning offshoots, as we finish the master plan, there's going to be special projects to tackle the zoning. I can't forecast all those till the plan is done.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Johnson was next, and that'll be Mr. Grenzebach, and then we're going to call it a night on this article, on this motion.
Good evening, town meeting. One of the reasons I rise to oppose, and I suggested that we withdraw the $40,000 from the budget, is because we don't have it. It's very simple. If you all were here last spring, we all thought we had sufficient funds to fund all these programs. Based upon new information that we have learned since last spring, we just don't have the money. We've had reduction in state aid and state funding. We have money. That's one of the reasons you see all this information up here. Our projections were wrong, based upon the facts we knew at the time, but they were incorrect. We have newer facts with newer information. There's a $40,000 study here that can wait. If we have the funds next year, we can do them then. I'd like to remind you, the planning board is very busy. They have a parking study that's been underway for over a year now, and it's still not finished. They have a zoning recodification that has issues, that has to be looked at, examined, and gone through line by line. There are issues with that. It's nobody's fault, but there are issues with that. How much can the board do? Can they do a plan successfully? I don't know. But I'd rather get all the plans, studies, and all other programs they have in line and look at it when we have the money next year, if we have the money. I ask you to support the vote to withhold the $40,000, and we'll have to come look at it in the next budget cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grenzebach, and then I sense we're ready to vote.